What are the families of the mobilized in Russia supposed to do? Children will receive free meals at schools, wives will receive lump sum payments and compensation for housing and communal services. On October 5, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin signed a decree on additional support for the families of the mobilized. The assistance package included not only lump sum payments, but also free meals at schools and enrollment in kindergartens without waiting lists for military children, assistance in finding work for spouses, home care for disabled relatives and more. The regions have also joined in. The amount of assistance varies and depends on the specifics of the territory. In some places, governors, for example, compensate for public transport fares. In others they distribute vegetables, fish and livestock. How the relatives of the mobilized are helped in Russia. In the material of Izvestia. How do they help children? The need to help the families of the mobilized began to be discussed almost immediately after the presidential decree of September 21. Federal support is being developed for military personnel and their relatives. On September 28, a corresponding bill was submitted to the State Duma. The document prescribes a one-time payment in the amount of 300,000 rubles, exemption from paying interest on mortgage and consumer loans for the period of service, exemption from payment for housing and utilities, capital repair contributions, exemption from property tax, compensation in the amount of 50% for the payment of CTP, if the car, in addition to the mobilized citizen, used by no more than 2 drivers. In addition, it is supposed to release the family of the conscript from paying for kindergarten, establish a monthly allowance for children under 3 years of age in the amount of 6,000 rubles and issue a one-time allowance to a pregnant wife in the amount of 14,000 rubles. All these measures are still under consideration in the relevant committees of the State Duma. However, the local authorities decided not to wait for the adoption of the federal law and not to be limited to it. First of all, the administrations of cities, regions and territories threw their forces at children. School children whose fathers were called to participate in the special operation will receive free hot meals. Now it is available only for elementary school students and beneficiaries. This measure was announced in most regions, for example, in Kostroma, Murmansk, Novosibirsk, Oryol, Voronezh, Tomsk and Kaluga regions, Khakassia and Tatarstan. Families with young children will also receive support. In many regions, they were offered extraordinary or facilitated enrollment in kindergartens, as well as compensation for payment and meals. This was done, for example, in the Voronezh region, Tatarstan and Buryatia. In the last 2 subjects, as well as in the Kostroma region, they took care of organizing free leisure for school children, and the Oryol region and the Khachmau are ready to pay for summer camps for them. The Tomsk region has taken over the tuition of adult children of the mobilized, students of colleges and technical schools. In most cases, the regional authorities seek to provide targeted assistance to the relatives of the mobilized. In many cities, special centers have been opened and hotlines have been launched so that spouses and relatives of the military can inform social workers what exactly they need. The lists will need to be raised. Personally understand each family where there are children, what are the health problems, learning. Be ready to work with these children separately in the most serious way, said the governor of the Kostroma region Sergei Sitnikov. We will make a map of individual needs for each family. We will help as much as possible in solving all pressing problems so that these families feel that there is someone to take care of them, said Teresa Ponomreva, director of the Department of Social Development of the Khachmau. How are spouses and relatives supported? Another common measure of support in the regions is lump sum payments. The amounts are different. For example, the Voronezh region will allocate 120,000 rubles to the families of the mobilized, Tomsk, 42,000, and Chukotka and Belgrade region, 100. In the Moscow region, families of the mobilized promised to pay 200,000 rubles. In several subjects, relatives of servicemen will receive priority medical care, will be able to undergo preventive examinations and medical examination out of turn. Social workers will come home more often to relatives who need it. This was announced in the Kostroma, Oryol, Kemerovo regions and Buryatia. Novosibirsk and Tomsk regions decided to compensate the families of the mobilized housing and communal services before the start of the heating season, and in Khakassia and Tatarstan they will provide free public transport. In commercial and agricultural regions, they help not only with money. On Sakhalin, 5 kg of fish will be distributed to the relatives of the military. In Tiva they will receive flour, potatoes, cabbage, as well as 1 ram. The mental state of the wives, children and parents of the mobilized was not ignored. For example, in the Kursk region, on the basis of a Center for Minors, an Office of Emergency Psychological Assistance to family members of military personnel was opened. A mobile team with a psychologist, a social pedagogue and a specialist in social work will also work there. Children will be able to get help, including in a hospital setting. Similar measures have also been taken in Caucasia, Kemerovo, Kaluga regions and other subjects. Moscow and St. Petersburg. Both capitals approached the task to the maximum. In St. Petersburg, they focused on the children of the mobilized. They will receive free meals in schools, free public transport and vouchers to children's health camps. Their parents will be completely exempt from fees in kindergartens. The city will buy uniforms for military personnel and pay them 100,000 rubles each. Volunteers will receive 300,000 each. First of all, it is necessary to provide the families of the mobilized with a full package of social services and payments. We have adopted a law that allows the governor to directly determine the nature and size of social support without making changes to the social code. This increases our efficiency and mobility, explained Alexander Beglov, the governor of St. Petersburg. Moscow has announced assistance for all relatives of the mobilized, including elderly parents and adult children. The mayor of the capital, Sergei Sobyanin, posted a full list of support measures on his website. It includes almost all the decisions made in the regions, plus a few additional ones. For example, spouses of military personnel and their children of working age will be provided with vocational training, and additional vocational education will help with job search. In addition to psychological consultations, relatives of the mobilized will be able to consult with lawyers for free. Children will be paid not only for meals at schools, but also for extension courses, clubs, sections and electives. The servicemen themselves will be paid an additional 50,000 rubles monthly during their entire service life. Conscription into the armed forces inevitably changes the established way of life not only of the conscript, but also of the whole family. In order for husbands and fathers to be calm for their wives, children and elderly parents, the city has taken them under special protection, Sobyanin stressed. Support measures continue to be developed, both at the federal and local levels. Only 2 weeks have passed since the announcement of partial mobilization, so some problems or tasks may be determined later. But both the regions and the capital have the resources to respond to the needs of native servicemen quite quickly.